Good afternoon. It's Sunday, January 24th. I'm Aria O'Sullivan, and this is IBA News broadcasting from Jerusalem. Israel is not being hit by a blizzard, but a nasty cold wave is sweeping the country. We're seeing 3 days of strong winds, rain, cold, and even snow in the high mountain areas. Even Jerusalem may get a white dusting starting tonight, with more in the following days. The Jerusalem municipality will be deploying over 50 snowplows across the city tonight, and the electric company has extra generators on hand. Israel Television's Oshri Elias spoke about some preparations with the director of the Hadassah Mount Scopus Hospital. We'll have an expanded weather forecast towards the end of the show with senior meteorologist Dr. Noach Wolfson from the Metotech Meteorological Service. Meanwhile, controversy over the evacuation of Jews in Hebron topped a cabinet meeting today. This, as settlers in Hebron said, an apparent compromise with Israeli authorities is in the works after some 20 Jewish families and activists were evicted by security forces from 2 homes Friday morning. IBA's Margo Dudkevich reports.
The evacuation near the Cave of the Patriarchs caused a political uproar, with harsh criticism directed at Defense Minister Moshe Ya'alon and Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu for approving the move. Members of the Likud and Jewish Home parties called the eviction irresponsible, and some lawmakers said they would boycott coalition votes until the settlers are permitted to return.
The buildings were purchased around 5 years ago, and we had an ongoing, the organization that purchased the land had an ongoing relationship with the seller. However, the seller remained inside the property and actually fixed up the property, some of the property, until such a point as we could move in. And the Jewish organization that headed up that purchase effort finally decided that it was the time to pull the trigger and did so.
The settlers had entered the buildings Thursday evening, claiming they'd purchased them from Palestinian landowners. The Prime Minister issued a statement saying that authorities have an obligation to uphold the law and stressed that none of the necessary permits in this case had been arranged. Netanyahu said that once and if the permits will be approved, the settlers can return to the homes.
The organization that made the purchase is absolutely certain that everything was done to the full extent of the law, every I dotted, every T crossed. The Prime Minister himself has signaled that he thinks that it's just a matter of procedural issue.
Sources said this morning a possible arrangement would allow families and activists to occupy one of the buildings while the legality of the purchase is examined by the Defense Ministry, and that a decision on the second building will take place at a later date. Has this organization purchased other homes that there's plans to enter them in the next weeks or months?
I don't know about the time period, but they certainly are in control of a few other land purchases, and that's what they're dedicated to do. They're dedicated to purchasing land in Hebron and settling it and making Jews feel comfortable in the homeland.
Margo Dudkevich, IBA News.
The Prime Minister's office is denying claims made by Palestinian President Mahmoud Abbas that Israel is hindering efforts to set up a meeting between the two leaders in recent months. Speaking during a meeting with Israeli journalists in Ramallah on Thursday night, Abbas said low-level contacts between the two sides continue, as well as security coordination, but he said he could not promise what would remain in the future. The Palestinian president accused Israel of violating the security understandings because of its constant arrests and raids in the West Bank areas. While Abbas refused to outright condemn the recent terror attacks, he said he opposes violence and bloodshed and supports a non-violent struggle. For his part, Netanyahu blamed the stalemate in negotiations on the Palestinian Authority. He said Abbas's comments are just another attempt to evade responsibility for the deadlock. A Palestinian was killed overnight when a pipe bomb he attempted to throw at soldiers exploded prematurely in East Jerusalem neighborhood of Abu Dis. There were no Israeli casualties. Earlier Saturday, a knife-wielding 13-year-old Palestinian girl was shot and killed as she ran towards a security guard outside the Anatot in the West Bank. Paramedics pronounced the teenager, Rakik Abu-Eid, dead at the site. Police said initial investigations suggest she was involved in a dispute with her family at their home nearby and reportedly left with the intention to die. Her father was detained briefly for questioning, and her body was handed over to the Palestinian Authority in Hebron. It's been cleared for publication today that Israeli security forces have captured the terror cell responsible for a shooting attack last week that left an IDF soldier lightly wounded. The three-man terror cell was based in Danaba, on the outskirts of Tulkarem. All the terrorists have been handed over to the Shin Bet security agency for interrogation. This is the second terror cell uncovered in Tulkarem in recent days. The Haifa District Attorney today submitted to the city's magistrates court the prosecutor's statement against 3 residents of Wadi Ara who are suspected of assisting Nashat Malham, the terrorist who murdered 3 people in Tel Aviv on January 1st. Officials said indictments will be submitted against the 3 next week. Currently, a gag order imposed on the investigation prevents the suspect's details from being published. Milhem, who fled the Dizengoff shooting attack, remained at large for a whole week before he was tracked down in his hometown of Arara and fatally shot by security forces as he tried to escape again. Well, joining me now in the studio is Itamar Marcus, founder and director of the Palestinian Media Watch, an Israeli research institute that studies and analyzes Palestinian society by monitoring its media and school books. Itamar, thanks for joining us.
Thanks very much for inviting me.
So we're witnessing a rise in terror attacks, and they're being carried out by the young teenagers. And do you agree with the IDF sort of position that these are lone wolf attacks, or are they not related to ideology, or are they a result of despair and frustration?
Anyone who understands the world of the Palestinian child, the world that the Palestinian Authority has created for it, will not be surprised that so many teenagers are involved in attacks, many of them suicide attacks, knowing that they will be killed. There are 25 schools in the Palestinian Authority named after terrorists. 3 of the schools are named for Dalal al-Maghribi, who killed 37 Israelis. We have sporting events all the time by the Palestinian Authority, including the Ministry of Education, named for terrorists. And I'll just give you a shocking example. Ahmed Ben Sara, who was the 13-year-old terrorist who stabbed a 13-year-old Israeli boy in the neck and nearly killed him, there has already been a sports tournament in Ramallah that many schools participated in, named for him. And if you look at the picture in the newspaper, you see children who are probably aged 13, 14, and 15 holding up the Ahmed Ben Sara Cup, so that they have already been given the message that if you want to be a heroic 13-year-old Palestinian, what you have to do is stab an Israeli in the neck. Add to this the demonization, that children are brought up on messages, that Jews are monkeys and pigs, Jews are enemies of Allah. You put this all together, you've got the motivation, and you've got children who then want to become heroes and want to see their pictures in social media, and you've got all the ingredients for children to go around trying to kill Israelis.
So looking after martyrdom, what's the role of the Palestinian Authority in all this incitement?
The Palestinian Authority is directly behind this. Like I say, all of these schools that I'm mentioning, all these sporting events, they're all sponsored by the Palestinian Authority. The programs on educational television, it's Palestinian Authority educational television that's teaching children that Jews are monkeys and pigs. So the PA is absolutely directly responsible for the years of hatred that have created Palestinian children who are willing to go out and kill. Today, the social media has jumped into this atmosphere that the Palestinian Authority has created, and they are possibly pulling the final strings today, because they are creating the pride and the honor for the children who are going out now and the teens who are going out now attempting to kill. But the whole infrastructure of hate was all created by the Palestinian Authority.
Now, Itamar, you recently returned from Europe, where you were speaking with a group of Swedish opposition lawmakers in an attempt to raise awareness about the ongoing Palestinian incitement. How did that go?
It went very well, and in particular, it was not just raising awareness of Palestinian Authority responsibility for the terror. It was also pointing out that the Palestinian Authority sees European and, well, in general, the international community's responses to their terror attacks now as giving them the green light to continue this kind of knifing terror. And what I did is I showed them a statement by Jibril Rajoub, who said, we cannot do suicide bombings in Tel Aviv, but we can continue killing settlers and soldiers who are in the wrong place at the wrong time. We have to fight in a way that the international community will remain on our side. What I told them is statements by your foreign minister of Sweden, which make the Palestinian Authority believe that they have European to go about killing Israelis, is what's continuing to fuel this. and that they therefore have a moral and ethical responsibility to let the Palestinian Authority know that the international community rejects murder of any person in any place at any time, and to thoroughly condemn the Palestinian Authority statements and the Jibril Rajoub statements that the European community and the European Union, the European community, the Americans are giving them the okay to kill Israelis.
Now, you mentioned the Swedish foreign minister. What sort of strategy do you use to explain the ongoing anti-Israel bias there?
What I do is I just let the members of parliament see for their own selves what's really going on. The foreign minister's statements are based on no evidence. What I give them is evidence. I show them the schools. I show them children speaking in schools named after terrorists who describe what it means to them. I show them the examples of programming from Palestinian television. I let them make their own conclusions. And there is only one conclusion, that the Palestinian Authority intentionally has literally poisoned the minds of their kids with hatred.
Now, Itamar, I want to show you something. I want to ask you about this latest sketch that we're going to show now. It's gone viral on Facebook. And the IDF spokesman for the Arabic language used this sketching of a stick image. You can see it here on the screen, wearing a chef's cap, and the caption reads, "Be Bilal. Bilal doesn't kill people with knives. Bilal purchased a knife for his father, a chef. Bilal is not a terrorist. He is wise." Itamar, is this an effective tool to reach out to the Palestinians to discourage them from carrying out attacks, or is this some kind of gimmick?
I think that reaching out to the Palestinians is definitely an important thing to do. It's difficult to say what is going to actually speak to any particular Palestinian. I think Palestinians have to be approached with Arabic messages coming from the Israeli government, from the Israeli army, from the Israeli people, that really we just want to be good neighbors. And in fact, over the years, we have been the best neighbors that they could possibly have. That's a message that has to come across loud and clear. If this particular message will actually get that across, I don't know, but we have to keep trying.
All right, Itamar Marcus of the Palestinian Media Watch, thanks for joining IBA News.
You're very welcome.
An Iranian couple carrying fake Israeli passports was arrested by authorities at India's Chenani airport. The two had arrived on a domestic flight from Goa and were detained as they prepared to board a British Airways flight to London on Thursday. The Indian Express newspaper said the couple held Iranian and Israeli passports. Closer inspection revealed the Israeli passports were forged. When questioned by police, they said they planned to settle in the U.S. and thought Israeli passports would aid them in entering. U.S. President Barack Obama telephoned former President Shimon Peres over the weekend to wish him well following his mild heart attack. Obama told Peres he held the Israeli leader in great esteem, as well as their long friendship. Peres praised Obama for his diplomacy, saying that diplomatic actions could achieve extraordinary agreements. The 92-year-old Peres was released last week after undergoing a successful angioplasty procedure at the Sheba Tel HaShomer Medical Center. Sports news, the firing of Israeli coach David Blatt, who led the Cleveland Cavaliers to the NBA Finals a year ago and to the top of the Eastern Conference this season, was received with mixed reaction here at home and abroad. Many expressed shock over the announcement Friday, with Israeli fans blaming the team star LeBron James as the main cause. A number of NBA coaches also criticized the decision. James today said he had not been previously informed of the plans to dismiss Blatt, who was not part of the move. Responding to the decision, Blatt underplayed disappointment, telling reporters he was proud of his accomplishments. Well, it's Sunday, and amid the stormy weather outside, here are 5 good things that may brighten your day and make you feel a little warm at heart. Largest investment conference hosting 3,000 of the world's leading businessmen, investors, and entrepreneurs from over 50 countries kicks off tomorrow in Jerusalem. Cabinet is set to approve lowering the cost of household water consumption by removing VAT tax. Water bills are expected to go down by 17%. From Auschwitz to the United Nations, representing Israel, 81-year-old Holocaust survivor Martha Weiss will address the world body during International Holocaust Day taking place this Wednesday. 2 gold medal for Israeli judokas, Yarden Jerby and Linda Boulder at the Grand Prix in Havana over the weekend. And the country's south is covered with a blanket of red anemones, known as kolaniot in Hebrew. Now back to the weather, and we can expect a blanket of white to cover the capital. A short while ago, I spoke with Dr. Noach Wolfson of the Israel Metotech Meteorological Service about the forecast. Noach, hi. Tell us, when is snow going to hit the capital?
Well, today there will be only snowflakes in the air. We don't see that anything would be falling on the ground. However, tomorrow There would be some snow falling on the high summits of mountains in Samaria and Judea. And during the night, there would be a deterioration of the weather, and we do anticipate that there would be snow on the ground tomorrow night, when the temperature would reach about 0 degrees centigrade.
Well, how will the areas outside of Jerusalem be affected in the north and the coastal plain?
Well, the coastal plains is as usual. You know, it's cold, rainy, and it's mainly in the Negev now. But it's variable. It's nothing unusual for the winter. Just very strong winds. However, on the central mountains, there would be the snow, and probably also in Safed and north Ramat Golan. And it really reminds us of last year when we had some snow events.
Is there a chance that the snow might stick maybe tomorrow night or Tuesday morning?
Oh, yes, that's what I said. In Jerusalem, usually you may get a snow when the temperature is already 3 degrees, but tomorrow it will be even colder, 0 degrees. And thus, we do anticipate that it would stick to the ground, 3-4 centimeters. Might be the case, even maybe 2 inches. And on Tuesday, there would be continuous snow on the northern mountains, and intermediately it would also fall in Jerusalem, which might be on the ground. But it's not a heavy snow like it used to be last year.
Now, there's a lot of rainfall. Is there a chance of flooding in low areas?
Well, flooding is also a question of how the installation does work, whether the conduits are blocked or not blocked. But if you get exceptional events like we did this year 2 times in Ashkelon, where you had about 60, 70 millimeters in about half an hour, yes, there is always the flooding. And obviously, in the basins of the rivers flowing, the Wadi is actually flowing into the Dead Sea or in the east of the country. And in the Negev, where the basins are large, so a small quantity may result in a huge flood. So it's advisable to be cautious in this weather, and especially with the cold winds. It's not so healthy. You feel really cold outside.
Well, it certainly doesn't compare to what's going on in the United States at the moment, does it?
Well, I was in the United States doing my postdoc during the President Day storm, as they call it, and I've seen 50, 60 centimeters, and it does block the thing. It's not as bad as freezing ice, but it's fun for the children. It's not as bad as that.
Okay, we've been talking to Dr. Noach Wolfson of the Israel Meteotech Meteorological Services. Thanks so much for talking to IBA News.
Thank you.
Well, as you just heard, it will continue to be stormy, windy, and snowy in some parts. Here are the expected highs and lows at home and abroad for the next 24 hours. Taking a look at the local finance, and with no currency trading on Sundays, the shekel remains the same, while the share prices on the Tel Aviv Stock Exchange started off the trading week in the plus column. Here's a look at the mid-afternoon numbers. That brings us to the end of this broadcast of IBA News. Hope you'll join us again tomorrow, where Laura Cornfield will be here to bring you the latest breaking news from Israel. Until then, I'm Aryeh O'Sullivan, wishing you a good evening and shalom from Jerusalem.